The original Resident Evil ended up being a huge success for not only Capcom, but the PlayStation as well. It spawned off toy merchandise, comics, books, one being a book that came out with the Sega Saturn version of Biohazard called Biohazard: The Beginning, written by Hiroyuki Ariga. People were all about Resident Evil, and survival horror was now a mainstream thing. The hype was real for what they chose to do next. The ending of Resident Evil did vary depending on events and actions you took throughout, and spoilers here I guess, but in the canonical ending, the Tyrant is defeated. Albert Wesker is found to have been a traitor to STARS while also working for the Umbrella Corporation, and is presumed to be killed by the Tyrant. The Spencer Mansion explodes from a self-destruct program while Chris, Jill, Rebecca, and Barry are rescued by a returning Brad Vickers via helicopter. The rest of Bravo Team were all killed throughout the events of the game. Co-producer Tokuro Fujiwara, the director of Sweet Home that Shinji Mikami viewed as a mentor, finished his work on Resident Evil, and that would actually be it for him with the series. Shinji Mikami stayed on board, but took over as the sole producer. Enter new director Hideki Kamiya, who was actually one of the planners on Resident Evil, and is known to be the one to name Jill, Chris, and Wesker. Kamiya was pushing for this new game to have a flashy Hollywood movie-style approach and really lean into the B-movie aesthetic, but the heat was on for him to produce a hit. Resident Evil 2 originally had a different story than what they eventually went with, but production was scrapped after they were about 70% of the way into it. The original release date of May 1997 had to be pushed back. There is a playable version of this that exists now, which is known as Resident Evil 1.5, but I haven't personally checked it out myself. It was originally going to be about a new character named Elza Walker, a woman who just happened to come across Raccoon City after crashing into the front entrance of the police station. The other storyline had to deal with rookie cop Leon S. Kennedy trying to defend the police station from a zombie attack. There would be no returning characters from the first game, and it would take place in a completely new setting of the Raccoon Police Department, as the mansion was destroyed at the end of RE1. But ultimately, after they brought in professional screenwriter Noboru Sugimura, he felt that this game just wasn't good enough, and that it was a mistake to have absolutely no ties to the first one. According to Mikami and Kamiya, this game essentially had the worst quality a video game can have. It was just boring. So, with the insistence from supervisor Yoshiki Okamoto, Sugimura was set to rewrite the events of the game, as he was a fan of the first Resident Evil. The project was to be officially restarted, much to the dismay of the crew. The character of Elza Walker was completely scrapped and changed to be Chris Redfield's sister. But this 1.5 version was still shown at trade shows and E3 to get some hype going for the new game, which eventually caused some confusion down the line. But with a restarted production and a new writer, it was now en route to being the game that was actually released. And to help fill in the time of the game's delay as a bit of an apology, they decided to release a director's cut of Resident Evil 1 in September of 1997, that I sort of touched upon last time. But this director's cut also featured an interactive demo for Resident Evil 2. The demo tells you that it takes place 2 months after the events of the first game, as it was time for the real nightmare to begin. It showed a decent amount of the first part of the game without too many differences from the final version. But on January 21st, 1998, Resident Evil 2 was released for the PlayStation in North America, and then 8 days later in Japan, and in May of 1998 in Europe. Everything about this game was bigger and more of a spectacle than the first game. A much larger setting taking place across different parts of Raccoon City. The graphics were much cleaner and improved looking. The screen could hold more enemies at one time. The voice acting was actually done by outsourced actors, especially when compared to the hilarity of the first game, all while retaining the same feel and control style. So, as we're known to do here on the channel, let's check out the cover and instruction manual, kind of pretending this is our first time seeing this. Firstly, the original cover for Biohazard 2 is simply a black cover with a ghostly image of a zombie's face on the right side, almost looking like a skull. It's pretty effective, and I kinda like it. But the English version is pretty iconic. The gray Resident Evil 2 font with a red border in front of a half-zombie face with its decrepit hand reaching around a door. I think this is probably the most well-known Resident Evil cover, but correct me if you think I'm wrong. It's simple and effectively creepy. So let's see what the manual says for our story here. A city crawling with confusion. Imagine a normal Midwestern US town built at the base of a vast forest. Business thrived here, especially with the advent of several new industries. Heck, you can't find a more peaceful wilderness getaway than Raccoon City. Then the trouble began, and it leads back to when the corporation arrived. Rumors began to spread, and the town was overcome with odd occurrences. Unidentifiable creatures appeared out of nowhere, and fatal accidents happened at an alarming rate. Word got out about a severe accident at a mountain lab. No one in town knew what was happening to their quaint town. The Raccoon Police Department, in an effort to calm the growing fear among locals, recruited several new officers. Leon S. Kennedy is one of the promising new recruits. As Leon prepares to join his new unit, he attempts to contact the captain who hired him, but has no luck reaching him. Unfazed, he continues into Raccoon City to his new job. At the other side of town, a distraught Claire Redfield searches for her missing brother, Chris. Claire begins her search in Raccoon City, the last known location of her brother, nearly 2 months ago, only to learn about the accident in the forest. Is Chris still in Raccoon City? Sadly, for Leon and Claire, they are completely unaware of the overwhelming world of horror and despair they both are about to enter. So we learn that Umbrella's sketchy antics have gone beyond the Spencer Mansion and that apparently Chris has gone missing. This game now follows 2 completely new characters, Leon S. Kennedy and Claire Redfield. Leon was one of the characters from the 1.5 version, but Claire Redfield was created to replace Elza Walker as Chris Redfield's sister who has set out to look for him. There's no mention as to where Jill, Barry, Rebecca, or Brad are either, which is kind of a bold move for a direct sequel. But the next page shows us a very interesting change. If you want to play Leon's mission, insert disc 1. For Claire's, insert disc 2. Yeah, this game is now on 2 discs, and it once again gives you the option of 2 characters. The developers originally did not intend to have it be on 2 discs, but it had to be done. Because one thing this game is known for is what is called the zapping system. When you complete the game with Leon or Claire, you can now play through it again with the other character, in which situations you encountered the first time have a bearing on situations you encounter the next time you play. So to get the full story, you're intended to beat this game twice, either Leon A, then Claire B, or Claire A, then Leon B. This is such a cool change from the first one, where you pick Chris or Jill, and while you can play through it again with the other character, they are isolated gameplays. This time, some decisions you make matters for your second playthrough. I think this even helps with the immersion too, as if you actually were Leon, you know Claire is also around, and Leon would want to leave some weapons or healing items to have Claire be able to defend herself more. I like it. So let's see what characters the manual presents to us. Leon S. Kennedy is an idealistic rookie cop. He burns with the need to protect and serve, and life as a cadet was an eye-opening experience. While reckless and brash, Leon is certainly not as naive as his demeanor would suggest. He is highly qualified for his new job with the Raccoon Police. Ada Wong is a mysterious woman that Leon stumbles upon who is quite secretive, yet, at the same time, a professional and skilled investigator. She can also come across as condescending and has a tendency to talk down to those she deems inferior to herself. Claire Redfield is a light-hearted, articulate, modern woman. While she can be a bit of a tomboy at times, she is somewhat wild. Self-confident and extroverted, Claire is typically the first person to try something many others would not. And lastly, Sherry Birkin is a lonely and insecure 12-year-old, but is quite mature for her age. She is very shy, and when she speaks, she lacks self-confidence and always has the feeling she is lost. Sherry's parents are too wrapped up in their work to heed the emotional needs of their child. And that's pretty much all we're given for setup. If you have a keen memory from the first game, you'll find the name Ada to be familiar, as it's the password you have to type in the Umbrella Lab computer, which is a pretty cool Easter egg. Who Sherry Birkin is, though, is a mystery until you play the game. Alright, let's check out the beginning, and just like last time, I'm going to let the entire intro play out. It is different depending on if you pick Leon or Claire, so I'll just show Leon's and then mention what's different in Claire's intro after. Let's do this.
Resident Evil 2.
A bizarre incident occurred in the outskirts of an American suburb called Raccoon City. It was later revealed that the terrible disaster had been caused by the T virus, a mutagenic toxin created by the international enterprise Umbrella Incorporated for use in bioweapon experiments. The Raccoon City Police Department's Special Stars Unit immediately began investigation in the affair. The case was apparently closed, thanks to the efforts of STARS members Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine. But the Umbrella Corporation's experiments were far from finished.
What have we got here?
That guy's a maniac. Why'd he bite me?
What a mess! What could have done this? What was that? What are these things? All right, that's far enough. Don't move! Don't move! No! What's up with that guy? That was a clean hit. I'm running out of ammo here.
Wait! Don't shoot!
Get down! We can't stay out here. Head to the police station. It'll be a lot safer.
Okay. What's going on? I arrived in town, and the whole place went
Great.
insane.
The radio's out.
You're a cop, right?
Yeah, first day on the job. Great, huh? Name's Leon Kennedy. Nice to meet you.
Mine's Claire. Claire Redfield. I came to find my brother, Chris.
Hey, could you open the glove box?
Sure. There's a gun inside.
Better take it with you.
Look out!
You okay?
Still in one piece.
Maniac's gonna ram us! Run! Claire!
Leon!
I'm okay. Head to the station. I'll meet you there.
Okay!
So it does sum up the ending of RE1 with the mention of Chris and Jill saving the day. And right away, the biggest change here is that they went away with the live action cutscenes in favor of computer graphic cutscenes. The quality improvement is pretty noticeable here too, and I think it looks quite good for 1998. I didn't really mention the actors or voice actors last time, but Leon here is voiced by Paul Haddad, who sadly passed away in 2020. Leon discovers a body laying in the road as it cuts to a truck driver who was just bitten by a zombie. Zombies are now roaming the streets of Raccoon City. Leon meets Claire here as the two of them head to the police station. In Claire's intro, we see her ride into town on a motorcycle before entering an abandoned diner. She discovers a zombie chomping down on a patron and tries to escape as she runs into Leon. Claire is voiced by Allison Court, who went on to continue being the voice of Claire numerous times over the next 14 years, pretty much up until the remake. Their voice acting is such a huge improvement over the original game. One nice little throwback line is when Claire takes the gun out of the glove box and Leon says,
Better take it with you.
just like Barry in RE1.
Better take it with you.
The two are soon attacked by a zombie hiding in the police car as the previously shown semi-driver crashes into them, exploding Leon's car and separating the two. The game begins as you're immediately being pursued by multiple zombies. You better be ready to run because you're only given seconds to react before one would attack you. As you enter the gun shop, you meet Robert Kendo, who only lasts about a minute before zombies burst through the shop window and start eating him. Absolute chaos everywhere. I love his umbrella sticker on the counter too, if only he knew. But if you're careful, this is where you can take his shotgun. So as you make your way through the dirty, garbage-laden streets and alleyways littered with zombies, you'll eventually reach the Raccoon Police Department, which is probably my favorite area in the entire series. The streets were just the intro, now it's time to explore the police station, acting as this game's Spencer Mansion. It's time to find Leon or Claire depending on who you are, and any other survivors of the zombie outbreak. The layout of the police station does resemble the Spencer Mansion in a lot of ways too, with winding halls, puzzles to solve, different keys needed for different rooms, etc. If this game gets any sort of criticism, it's that it may not make a lot of sense that this government-funded police station would also have intricate puzzles and locked doors needing special keys. But to that I say, I don't care, I love it anyway. Also, apparently this police station used to be an art gallery, so it is kind of explained. Also, the name Resident Evil may start to make less sense here. I guess the residents would be everyone living in the entirety of Raccoon City, maybe? Just about everything about the gameplay from RE1 returns here too. Tank controls, fixed camera angles, limited inventory, herbs, first aid sprays, ink ribbons to use and typewriters to save, item boxes, all of the familiar mechanics. There is more of a variety of weapons here too. Leon even starts with a lighter in a permanent spot and Claire has a lockpick, but because this is a police station, ammo is found a bit more frequently than in the mansion. There are generally more enemies here and you will likely end up finding a ton of handgun bullets throughout. This could be seen as a slight departure from the survival horror staple of ammo preservation, but you will still have to plan your routes and ammo usage wisely. The focus here is more on the action and spectacle this time around. One slight change here deals with how your character walks to indicate how injured they are. This game uses the same fine, caution, and danger ECG indicator on your inventory screen, but Leon or Claire will now hold onto their side or begin to limp if they're close to dying. This is a nice touch to help show how close to death you are. Because of this, they'll also move slower too. And that's pretty much the first part of the game. I'm really going to try and stick to just going over the intros in these videos to help avoid spoilers and, make it easier on myself. These aren't meant to be walkthroughs or story rundowns, but more so a look at the games as if someone were checking them out for the first time. But I have to at least mention the zombie head turn moment in this game. By that, I mean your first encounter with a zombie in RE1 is one of the most iconic scenes in the whole series, and we get one of those here pretty early on. If you go to the leftmost room of the main hall, you'll find a small room with an item box, par for the course here. As you turn the corner and the camera angle changes, just for a split second, you see something crawling across the window on the outside as it disappears out of sight. Then nothing happens. As you go through the door, the camera angle is briefly shown from the outside looking in, and it's completely silent. As you turn the corner, you find a police officer dead on the ground with its head missing, as it looks like it was completely torn off. You then see blood dripping from the ceiling, and in a cutscene, your character looks up to see something crawling across the ceiling. It's tannish red colored, on all fours with long claws, an exposed brain, no eyes, and an extremely long tongue. This is your first encounter with the legendary Licker creatures. Lickers can't see and rely only on sound to attack you and can be pretty nasty to deal with, and they will return in many games. Aside from zombies, they're probably the most recognizable Resident Evil creatures. But wow, what a setup to the big reveal. It's all so well done. And lastly, I have to at least mention the bonus stuff. I never personally got into the non-campaign elements of Resident Evil, but this game is the intro of both Hunk and Tofu. The Fourth Survivor is a bonus game where you play as Special Ops Agent Hunk and are timed to reach the rescue helicopter while making your way through a ton of enemies. And if you complete this, oh yes, you get to play a harder version as a block of tofu. This is a real thing. Tofu has more health but only uses a knife. And that's pretty much it for the start of the game. Everything here is just bigger and of higher quality. There were so many elements introduced here that have a lasting effect on the rest of the series. Resident Evil 2 was a monster success. At the time, it was the fastest selling game in North America, and it went on to sell even more copies than the first game did, placing it as the 14th best-selling PlayStation game of all time at about 5.7 million copies on the system. The game got unanimous praise across the board at mostly A and A+ grades, with it at worst being a high B. Even to this day, it is considered by many to be the best Resident Evil game of all time. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it would definitely be up there for me. I do think it's better in almost every way from the first game, but I can understand if someone prefers the charm and appeal of RE1 over this one. Gone are the hilarious scenes and voice acting, but in its place is what I think a scarier, much more well-made experience. It's not perfect or anything, but I think the idea to lean into a B-movie zombie outbreak story was the right choice overall, even if the name Resident Evil is starting to not apply as much. Hideki Kamiya and company did indeed produce a hit. The first game was more isolated, being in a scary mansion in the middle of the forest, acting as a spiritual remake of Sweet Home, but it was time for things to ramp up here. We now get to see Raccoon City entering a state of ruin, and the quaint town that it once was is completely gone. It's no longer about saving the city, but surviving. Also, Leon and Claire are just excellent characters. As for me personally, Leon is my favorite character in the series, but that's mostly for reasons down the line. I like him more than Chris, but Jill and Claire are pretty equal for me. But if I'm judging them just on these two games alone, yeah, Leon and Claire are much more well-rounded characters. Let's be honest, Jill has yet to live up to her potential if you base her off of the first game alone. Resident Evil 2 went on to make its way onto many more systems than the first one did. First, like with the director's cut DualShock version of RE1, RE2 also got a DualShock version to utilize the superior analog stick on the DualShock controllers. Unless your preference is actually using a D-pad for tank controls, this is the improved way to play all around. This version came out in August of 1998 in Japan, about half a year after the base release, and then November of 98 in North America, and it also had an added mode for playing with unlimited ammo. The next release is a pretty infamous one for a little Tiger electronic system called the Game.com, also in November of 1998. This version only has Leon's game, and as you can see, is a much more toned down version with black and white pixels. I mean, like, immensely toned down. It's no surprise that this is not the ideal version, but honestly, I think it's pretty cool that it exists at all. I'd be lying if I said I didn't want a copy of it for the collection. In early 1999, it got a Windows 9 export with the given name Resident Evil 2 Platinum. This version is capable of having a higher resolution than the PlayStation and has some bonus features of sketches and 3D models and stuff. But on Halloween of 1999, Resident Evil 2 found its way to the Nintendo 64 of all systems for its North American release. This exact version right here was my first introduction to Resident Evil. My neighbor friend James and I, this is James by the way if you followed my channel at all, we both went to our local Blockbuster some Friday in 2000 to rent some games for the weekend. There was probably some Rent 2 game special because we kept debating on what game to rent alongside the brand new release of Mario Tennis. I was not a fan of horror, like at all, but I kept seeing that cover and feeling brave enough to try it out. I was 14 at the time, so we decided it was time to rent what was likely our first M-rated game. And wow, what an experience that was. And it was scary to us back then. We were nervous to keep exploring, seeing that door opening animation over and over, not knowing what horrors we were about to find, but I ended up really loving the game. Just not enough to go out and buy it at the time. My brother and I grew up with only Nintendo systems in our house, so if Capcom never chose to port Resident Evil 2 to the Nintendo 64, I really don't know when or if I would have given the series a chance. So this port right here is the most important release for me personally. It was my true introduction. Nowadays, this version is seen as a bit of a marvel, as they not only managed to fit the entire game with both scenarios on a cartridge as opposed to 2 discs, but there's a randomizer, alternate costumes, the ability to change the color of the blood, new files you can find, and all while still looking good, sounding good, and running just fine. It was impressive that the team pulled this off. The N64 Japanese and European releases were in early 2000. The next release was intended to be for the Sega Saturn to complement the RE1 release, but it was eventually cancelled. Instead, they ported it to Sega's successor to the Saturn, the Dreamcast, in December of '99 in Japan, and then December of 2000 in North America, and April of 2000 in Europe. A bonus for this Dreamcast version was the utilization of the Dreamcast controller, which featured a small screen that showed you your real-time health status if you ever wanted to look down at the controller. It's a nice little bonus. And this version was certainly able to utilize the Dreamcast's higher graphical power too. And that's not even it. In January of 2003, Resident Evil 2 was also ported to the Nintendo GameCube alongside Resident Evil 3 and Code Veronica, which we'll get to in due time. By the time 2003 rolled around though, this game was 5 years old and didn't really appeal to audiences as much at the time. Video gaming advanced so much between 1998 and 2003. And yet that's still not all. There was even a Windows XP release of the game in Japan in 2006, a release on the PlayStation Network in 2006 in Japan and 2009 in North America, plus the eventual remake in 2019. Resident Evil 2 is pretty serious stuff, and they wanted to make it as easy to play as possible. There was a comic series based on the story here, and S.D. Perry's third Resident Evil novel, City of the Dead, is a novelization of it. Even future games will make a return to the RPD and this story in some form. It is safe to say that this is one of the more important releases in the series. But next time, we're going to stick right to the numbered release order. The very next release is the third chapter in the classic trilogy. Join me next time as we take a look at Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Paraspectre will return.
There he is.
So you finally come.
Doctor, we're here to collect the G-Virus sample.
Sorry, but I won't just hand over my life's work.
Are you telling me that he injected the G-Virus into his own body?
The G-Virus has the ability to revitalize cellular functions.
What was that? Something's wrong. Let's check it out. Over there! Shoot! Eat this, you freak!
Claire, what's happening?
Not now. Claire? Where am I?
It worked!
Oh, Sherry. Oh, no!
Claire! Stop the train!
I can't. Leon, where are you? Sherry? What are you doing?
Which one's the right switch? Maybe this one?
Finally, the exit.
Are you all right?
I'm okay.
Where's Claire? Claire? Claire!
Right here.
Claire!
I guess so. It's finally over. Sherry, you look terrible.
No worse than you, Claire.
Is something following us?
We have to go. We don't have any time to waste.
Go? Where? I have to find my brother.
You're right. This is just the beginning. Hey, it's up to us to take out Umbrella.